I am excited to talk a little bit more about this. Recapturing your magic is, to me, something so important for all of us, actually. And have any of you ever woken up in the morning? You look in the mirror and it's like the best morning ever. Your hair is still perfect from the day before. You don't have to shower. You feel fantastic. Have you ever had a morning like that? Someone shaking their head. No, I have, right? And then, you get to work and you take that very first phone call, or maybe it's an interaction with staff and it's really negative and you just feel that energy start to slip away. Have you ever had that happen? I have. So I was thinking one day, well, what could I do to really maintain that level all the time? How could I always have what I consider that magic within each person to really inspire the world around them, right? When we feel it, then we are it, right? At the end of the day. So I put together some information for us today that will hopefully help us to always have that buzz that makes us feel so good. So in our time together, test my little clicker here. I guess I don't need the clicker because I'm standing right here at the thing, right? We are just going to share, I'm going to share with you 3 bonus principles today that really help us maintain loyalty and also help others to follow us, which is important, and better understand what real magic is. I know I say magic, I think a lot of thoughts go into our mind. We're going to provide 6 principles that when we're following them, our magic will be present. And I'm going to give you a secret at the end to really control some outcomes in your life. Does that sound good? I like that. Me too. And we're going to have a little bit of fun. We are going to do some activities in the room today. I'm excited about those. So hopefully you guys are willing to move around a little bit today and not just sit complacent. So with that, let's see. Yes. Bonus principle number 1 is live life looking forward. It's very interesting. As I say that, one of the things that we love to do, especially in business, if something goes wrong, what do we want to know? Why it went wrong, right? In fact, we'll hold a meeting on it. We'll pull everybody together. And the big thing is not how we're going to solve what went wrong, but what do we start with? Why? Why did it go wrong? In fact, they say that in business, most of our time is spent in an office talking about what is going wrong versus how we're going to solve it and how we're going to move forward. We spend the last little bit after we've found who it is and how we're going to blame them and punish them, right? To then move on forward looking. So how great is life if we're able to live life looking forward? Could you imagine if we were trying to drive around looking in our rearview mirror all day? How successful? Would you guys like that, first of all? Does that sound fun? I don't like, even with my backup camera, I still don't like it. I'm always afraid I'm going to hit something. And unfortunately, human nature is to want to look back instead of forward. So this is it. This was that study out of Stanford in 2000. 85% of the time, you guys, as leaders and business people, we're spending it looking at the problem, trying to figure out who to blame versus finding the solution. So I challenge you guys to switch that around. How cool would it be if we spent 85% of our time just finding the solution, moving forward, instead of the opposite? I had a personal experience. I was in charge of a racing event one year, and it was getting pretty close to that time. I was driving on a street that I was very familiar with, and I knew that the race was going to end near the bridge that I was about to go over. So the bridge went up and down, and then the road turned. And it was a really private road. No one was ever on it that much. So I knew that as I got to the top of the bridge, I could turn to my right, I could look and see the finish area and make sure there was enough space for all the registrants that had signed up. So I get to the top of the bridge, I look to my right and I'm like, oh, that's perfect. Before I know it, suddenly my car goes up in the air. I slam on my brakes and I come to a stop, and you guys, am sitting on the back of a flatbed truck. So they were doing some construction up ahead. I hadn't seen that. They had unloaded a big Caterpillar thing. Fortunately, it had a flat ramp, not just 2 little things. So when my car hit it, I ended up on the ramp. I tore the struts in my car, not very smart of me. But as I was sitting there trying to figure out how I'm going to get off the flatbed of this big semi, I heard applause. Yes, the construction workers had seen it as well. And I had to back down. It was embarrassing. And why did it happen to me? Because I was living life where? I was looking back, right? I wasn't looking forward. So in life, we need to be able to look forward, because forward is where we're always headed. We don't get to go back and always relive the past. Just one final story. Adventure racing, I had the privilege of watching a speaker who was talking about the experience of adventure racing. Are you guys familiar with adventure racing? So adventure racing is a country event. So each country has a team that they put together. The team is 5 people. There has to be the token opposite sex on the team, whatever that is. So if you can't have 5 women, right? You have to have at least 4 and 1 guy. Well, the US team is made up of the opposite. It's made up of 4 guys and 1 woman, right? And she was telling her experience about just not wanting to let down the team. She was a lone woman on the team, and they have to do all these crazy things. They have to scale a mountain, and they have to stay within touching distance of each other the entire time. So your slowest person is going to slow you down. So as she was going up the mountain, they did everything great, but then they got to the portion where they were rafting, and the French are always their nemesis. And so she kept looking back to see where the French were at. They were in the lead, but she wanted to make sure they maintained that. And all of a sudden, a hand grabbed her head and spun it forward. It was her coach. And he said, the race is won that direction. Stop looking back, right? And how horrible. She didn't like her head being grabbed, by the way, but it was a good message. And that is, we have to do what? Live life looking forward, right? So just a bonus principle, as you talk about this magic that you have, if you really want to share it and be successful, it is about looking forward and not looking back. The second bonus principle I wanted to share with you is understanding who the real leader is. I think in organizations, we look around and we see all these great titles. And I'll be honest with you, titles are amazing, and we follow people because of titles often, but it doesn't mean that we agree with what they say. So how do we influence individually? And who really is a leader in an organization? I want to share a principle that came across on this. And it happened when I met this gentleman here. His name is Chad Hymas. Chad was always a very successful individual. He actually had an elk ranch out in Utah. One day he was trying to get out and feed the elk quickly and then get back to his family. So he was rushing things. He had a big machine where he was unloading some big bales of hay, trying to spread them. And he went to do it. He saw that he was a little off balance, but went forward with it anyway. It ended up pinning him and making him a quadriplegic. He was actually laying on the ground, dying. He couldn't even catch his breath. Fortunately, his wife found him and was able to save his life. He goes around, he talks now. Very interesting man, but he was sharing his story with us, and we had actually decided to have this executive retreat. So here's our leaders from our organization listening to this man, and he asked the following question. He goes, who's the leader in your organization? And of course, we're like, well, by title, we all are, right? So we're looking at each other, and then finally, he said, no, the real leader is actually the first follower. And I'm like, well, what does that mean, right? He said the real leader in any organization is the person that gets up and follows first. So I'm thinking about this. I actually ended up so the real leader is the first follower. That's what he said. I ended up in Vegas. This is 2014 at a HFMA event. And we were having a good time. At the end of the big annual conference, they always put in the new chair, and the chair usually has some big festivities. This chair did. She wanted to have a big party, and it was all about rock and roll. So she actually joined us up on stage, and she was introducing us to her theme. It was Carrie Cornicelli, if anyone knows who she was in her year, 2014. There was a guitar sitting on the corner of the stage. I'm back like you guys are, sitting at rounds, just talking to people at my table, eating food. And by the way, we're in a huge convention hall, and they've got cameras going and big screens everywhere. It was really impressive, the event itself. And she comes out, she says, thanks for being here. And then some guy runs up and he kind of distracts, and he looks like the guy from Back to the Future, right? And for the professor anyway. And he grabs a guitar, she leaves the stage, and he starts strumming the guitar. And every time he would play the guitar, a song would play. And it was really cool because people would come out and actually dance to that song, right? And they were trying to get everyone in the audience to do what? Not sit, but come up and participate. So finally, of course, the more and more they played, guess what everyone was doing? Sitting. They were just watching everybody else, all the dancers run around, but they weren't getting up and participating. And I remembered that talk from Chad Hummus. He said the real leader is what? The first follower. So I was like, well, it sounds true to me. I guess that's real. So I grabbed the person next to me and I said, come on, let's go. And she's like, what are we doing? I said, we're going to go dance. And she goes, but no one's dancing. I said, I know, because it's the first follower, right? That causes people to dance. And she's like, you are so weird. But she followed me up there and we started dancing. And guess what happened? No one came up and danced with us, right? No one. So I was like, oh my goodness, I still believe this principle is real. I just believe that's right. So I stayed up there. She left. Another person came up to join me. And then guess what happened? People started to show up. In fact, when I went to walk away, this is what it looked like, with people already starting to come to the dance floor. And as I walked back, I was like, it's true, right? We are more like animals than we want to admit. We all sit back and we wait for that very first person to make the move, and then we'll move as a pack into things. But it taught me a really important, or it just made me question the following. Oh, yeah, I got this clip. We're going to test our clips now too. I found this clip that really shows the first follower in action, and hopefully the people online can hear. So Michelle, this will be our test. You can ask them if they're able to hear. And here we go with our very first video. This is an example of the first follower in action. And I know that as I was watching that, a part of me wanted to start moving as well. And the reason is we like to follow, right? And at the end of the day, as we think about this principle, it made me ask the question, have I identified really, as a leader, have I identified those people in my organization that are going to step up first? Because really, I don't have to inspire my entire team, do I? Really, technically, I need to inspire somebody who's going to step up and going to be that first follower. And then the second question I ask myself is, oh my goodness, am I being that person? Am I stepping up when the organization needs me to step up and follow? Or am I the one that's dragging and pulling things down? So just a good principle to keep in mind, and a reminder that we are those leaders by stepping up and being willing to follow. The last bonus principle I want to share with you before we jump into recapturing your magic is the one person difference. Do you guys believe that one person makes the difference in your organization? In other words, without you, the organization's screwed, right? Does one person make the difference? And I had an experience with my daughter. She was working at Taco Bell in a very college town. As you guys know, Taco Bell's cheap, so a lot of college students go there. She was working the drive-through. They were coming through in abundance that evening. And all of a sudden, she got an order from a gentleman who ordered just one burrito. She goes, it's 99 cents. He came to the window. She took his dollar, and then he goes, hey, how much is the order for the car behind me? And it was, I think she said like $35. Which is a lot, not anymore, but before COVID, that was a lot of food at Taco Bell. And then he said, I want to pay for the car behind me. So she said, okay, he pays. The college students come up. She's like, it's your lucky day because the guy in front of you paid. And they're like, that is so cool. Can we pay for the car behind us? She said, yes. And so she said, Dad, I watched the clock for 1 hour. Every car paid for the car behind them. And then eventually a gentleman drove through and went, oh, thanks, right? And drove off and didn't pay for the car behind him. But did one person start it? Did one person end it? Does one person make the difference? One person does make the difference. And I will argue that all day long, that you are the person that makes that difference in your organization every day. And you make the greatest difference when you decide to show up and what? And have that magic with you. So with that, let's jump into recapturing our magic. I want to start by talking a little bit about magic itself and what it means. So understanding magic and how important it is in our lives. So with that, what exactly do we mean by magic? When you guys hear the word magic, what comes to mind? David Copperfield. I love that. She's in Vegas already. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's a good one. Any other images come to mind? Disney's Magic Kingdom. I don't know. My kids say that. In fact, the world kind of teaches us that this is magic, right? You'll see stuff like this, Bewitched, Harry Potter, all of those things. But in fact, another audio video here. This is a good clip showing us what the world teaches us magic really is.
Next, it's Kevin James.
Impressive, right? How cool would that be if that was real, you guys? Is this real? No, it's fake, right? But how cool if you could actually, if someone annoyed you, maybe at registration, right? You're just walk by with a chainsaw, come in half, go back, put them together later, send them on their way, they'd be fine. But unfortunately, this is not real, and this isn't really the magic that we're talking about. The magic that we're talking about actually came to me shortly after I graduated. Actually, it was at my graduation for high school. My English teacher came up and he handed me a book, and it was this book here. It's called Hope for the Flowers. And it's about the caterpillar actually over on the far side stripe. So I didn't pick up the book until I think my senior year of college. It was laying around. I don't even know why I took it to college with me, but it was there. Had a little spare time. So I picked up the book and I was like, I wonder what this is. It looked more like a picture book for the most part. But as I got through, it was really about this caterpillar stripe who ended up hatching from an egg, eating a leaf. But as he was growing, he felt like he needed to get up higher in the sky, right? He knew he needed to be higher, but he didn't know how to get there. Does that sound familiar? Maybe all of us, as we enter into our careers, we know we want to be up there higher. We're just not sure how we're going to get there. As he's crawling around, he suddenly comes across a thing called a caterpillar pillar. I guess it's a real thing where caterpillars will crawl on top of each other, form this really tall column, trying to get higher up into the sky. He's like, oh, that's what I need to do. So he jumps in, he starts working his way towards the top. And of course, as he's doing that, he's getting stepped on and he's getting pushed around and he's pretty miserable. Fortunately, he runs into another caterpillar there, yellow, and they decide to form a union and they're going to make it to the top together. Along the way, because it's so challenging, finally Yellow's like, this is not what I want to do in life, and convinces Stripe to go down to the bottom with her and just enjoy life. So they're down there, but it's not enough for Stripe. He finally wants to go back and get up high because that's what he knows he needs to do. So he leaves Yellow and he goes back to the pillar. Meanwhile, Yellow is crawling along and she runs into another caterpillar who's stuck in some sticky stuff from a branch. And she goes, what's happening? He goes, oh, don't worry, I'm becoming a butterfly. And she goes, can I do that? And he goes, yes, it's within you. So out of fear, she hung next to him and starts to form her little cocoon. Meanwhile, back in the pillar, Stripes finally made it to the top. And guess what he found? Nothing, just other caterpillars saying, don't tell anybody that there's nothing really here because we're where they want to be, right? So as he's up there, first of all, does that also sound familiar? I think many times in life we have these aspirations and we think it's going to be so great, and then we get there only to find out that's really not what we wanted at all. So finally, this beautiful yellow winged creature flies by and tries to communicate with him, and somehow he knows that that's what he needs to become. So he starts crawling down the pillar. As he's crawling down the pillar, he's telling everybody, don't go to the top, there's nothing there. The caterpillar or the butterflies where? Inside. If you want to get high, you become a butterfly. And of course, everyone laughed at him. By the time he gets to the bottom, he's doubting himself. But he's greeted by this beautiful yellow winged creature, which keeps showing him this little cocoon. Somehow he understands what he's supposed to do. He goes up, hangs up there, and the last page, or what I thought was the last page, I see these two butterflies flying off together. And I thought, what a great book. That's a really great book. And then I turned the next page and I saw the real magic. And I saw that entire pillar coming down, becoming butterflies. And that's the magic that we're talking about today. Each one of us has such a strong ability to influence the world around us that we actually change the world every single day. And the outcomes that are happening, we actually create a lot of those every single moment of our lives. So this magic is very real, and it can either be very influential, or we can have moments like I had. Another personal story, when I was in high school, I was a jazz player. I played a saxophone, right? It was so much fun. And I got asked to try out for the choir. I was like, I'll try out. I tried out. I actually ended up making the elite choir. Not just a choir. I make the big choir. There's only 4 boys, 4 girls. We all have microphones. We travel all over. We're doing these big shows. We're singing. And we are in towards the end of the year, by the way. So I've already done this for an entire year. I think I'm pretty good because I made the elite choir. And the teacher is not that impressed with where we're at in the year. So he finally has given a big speech up in front and goes, oh, you guys need to work harder. Take Jeff. That's me, by the way. Take Jeff, for example. Do you think he's in this choir because he's a good singer? No, it's because he's a hard worker. Right. Nothing feels better, you guys, than finding out you're just a hard worker, right? That you're really not a good singer. And this whole time you've thought you've been contributing to the choir. So the very last concert we had left, he's running to me backstage. He's like, Jeff, I can't hear you because guess what I'm doing? I'm lip syncing, right? Because I'm just a hard worker. I'm not a good singer. And he's like, I've got you turned all the way up and I can't hear you. And I'm like, yeah, because I suck, right? In my mind. And so this magic that we have can also be torn away very quickly by a comment. So we have to be careful of that. And yes, it was me allowing that comment from that teacher to destroy the magic that I had to share. In fact, I didn't sing again. I think it was like 20 years before I would sing again. It's kind of crazy what we do to ourselves mentally with just little comments here and there. But we know that this magic that we have can be turned off quite quickly as well. So this magic that we have really is our ability to change the world around us. And I ran across this clip that really shows this power in action and wanted to share it with you. Okay, so you just watched a gentleman who was told he'd never be able to play. And the reason he was able to do that is because he allowed his magic, what was so powerful inside him, to drive him to learn and be able to do that. And that is the power of this magic that we're talking about today. Unfortunately, this magic is based on our ability to be confident in ourselves. And confidence right there, there's 3 things that make it up. You can see them: responsibility, choice and decision, and state of mind. As you think about those 3 elements of confidence, which ones do you control? All of them. Yes, I heard someone whisper it. It's true. We control all of it. So guess who gets to decide if we're going to be confident in our day? We do, right? And we don't get to blame other people because we're not confident and willing to share it. This is something that's very personal and that we can control. I ran across this clip that shows the power of confidence in action. Tell me if you know who this little singer ended up being.
Có nhiều màu mình đang go rock hero down style may mắn sweetest one nhiều màu sao we don't gonna have fun all about you're gonna rock this style till it gumbo cause tonight I'm gonna see I'm stereo. That's right. Big guitar from the radio. Started the gun and have it fun on the bar. Take the ball, Hunter! Ball set ball! On a big gun, have big fun on the bio. Son of a gun.
Okay, I'm going to just end it there. But did you see his confidence? Would that be hard to stand in front of a large group? It'd be embarrassing for me to sing, obviously, in front of a big group like that. But he didn't. Does anyone know who that little boy is today? Huh? Kid Rock. Oh, that's a good guess, actually. It's Hunter Hayes. Do you know Hunter Hayes? Have you ever heard of Hunter Hayes in country music? So that was him as a young child. And of course, his confidence allowed him to really inspire that whole crowd. And that's why this confidence is important for us to be able to share our magic. Our success is directly linked to our ability to use this magic. And of course, that's why it's so important. Now trending in Oregon. So why are we talking about this magic? Why is it important to our organizations and to what we're trying to accomplish in healthcare? So right now, trending in healthcare in Oregon, I just want you guys to know, I looked at the 22 numbers and this is what has come in. So as far as staffed beds, there were 6,355 staffed beds in 2022. Good job, considering everything that was going on. Discharges, 294,764. That's a lot of people that had stays internally that got discharged. That's awesome. Patient days were over 1,495,000. And the revenue, this is revenue, guys. That's in the billions, right? $34 billion sitting up there in 2022. So that's very impressive. That came out of the hospital directory. You can check that out online. So what would happen, you guys, if everyone showed up at the healthcare systems and decided to give not 100%, we'll just give 97% for the year. After all, we're taught in school, that's an A, right? That's good. 97%, that's great. So what if your productivity at the healthcare system dropped to just 3%? What would happen? Well, this would be the results. 190 fewer staffed beds, 8,000, almost 9,000 fewer discharges, 44,000, almost 45 fewer patient days, people getting services that they need, and the impact to revenue, over $1 billion. Does your magic and your ability to show up and give 100% in what you're doing have an impact on the organization that you work for? It does. Does your ability to show up have an impact on this community? It really does, right? That's why we're here talking about it today. I'm giving you a couple of tools that you can use to really always show up and give your best. So let's identify some factors that stop us. Why is it sometimes we show up and we're not 100% our best? Anybody? And if anyone's online and you want to use the chat and put your comments in there, the people are watching in the back and they'll actually tell us what you're saying. Self-doubt. Oh, that's a good one. That's true. Self-doubt, lack of confidence, right? Or inability. Other reasons that we show up and we're not 100% our best?
We're distracted.
That's me. Distracted. Very easy to get distracted. Any other? We're sick. Yeah. we're sick and we're worried about that. That's a real thing, right? Other partied too hard the night before, yeah.
I would say just give up because you just fail. That you just give up because you don't feel like you're being heard or the things you get accomplished, so you just kind of give up.
I like that. I don't like that, but you're right. I like the answer. It's a true, real statement. So he said we give up because we feel like we're failing and we just can't seem to make the progress that we want to make, right? Any other reason we show up? I mean, we give less than our best. Yeah, comment in the back.
Shared burnout could be a reason. Yeah, shared stress, and Leah said
Overloaded, stress, burnout. All those things are so real, right? And they do stop us from giving our best. I put a couple of other things up here. I know you guys are worried about all the regulations that are coming down, all the mandates. Those are big in healthcare, not small. Providing excellent customer service, even though the people that you're providing it to may not be appreciative of all the work that you're trying to put into it. Another thing that burns us out along the way. And really, at the end of the day, of all of these amazing things, I think the biggest factor that stops us from really sharing our magic abundantly is people. I know for a fact, I was actually sitting in the parking lot this morning, waiting for this beautiful conference to start. I happened to be here by myself sitting, and out of nowhere, someone was standing next to my window. She was knocking on my window. So I cracked it a little bit because I was like, what's going on? She's like, I need you to call 911 immediately. I'm like, 911? Why? What's going on? And she's like, I'm Queen Latifah of some African country, is what she told me. Nigeria, right. And I was like, oh, okay. And she was bleeding and she needed immediate assistance. And she wanted to go to Providence, by the way. So if anyone's from Providence here, she wanted to go there. And then she told me that she needed mental help. And I was just like, and then she walked away before I could do anything else. So there are people out there, and as we interact with them, sometimes we're not sure how to understand them, and it tends to throw us into a loop and impact our ability and where we're at. Like you were saying, the distraction, right, that comes, Kelly. So here's a quick video to just show the point that sometimes people tend to drain us of our magic. I am not a Jerry Springer fan, but this particular video is just so good. I had to share it with you. The audio is not super loud. I tried to bump it up, but I think you can appreciate it.
You lost your job because you went to work drunk. Half the time you went to work drunk. That's why you lost your job. No. That's why. You won't even take a DNA test for children and youth. Hello? How dumb can you be? When you gotta hide?
Excuse me, a DNA test?
Drug and alcohol. Don't you know what a DNA test is?
I don't need to say any more about that, do I? I don't need to say any more about that, do I?
Right. So she thought a DNA test meant drug and alcohol. There you go. So they're out there, right? And we get those people too that we're interacting with, and you're like, you got to be kidding me. And it drains that magic that we have. Here's one more clip.
Hello, I'd like to order French fries, a burger, and a milkshake. This is a library. I'd like to order French fries, a burger, and a milkshake.
Yeah, they're out there, right, you guys? And we're going to interact with them. And so once we realize that people can also drain us of our magic, there's things that we can do to really put it in place. So step number one, when you start to feel that magic drain, do the following: sharpen the saw. This is the very first principle, and it's so important. It's our ability to focus on ourselves just for a moment to get it back. And so many times we're so distracted again that we don't even think to stop for ourselves and do a little healing along the way. So sharpening the saw, all of us have, and when I worked for Dr. Kevy, we have what he calls a saw, something that helps us get through our day, saw through everything that we have to do. But as we use it a lot, saws do what? They dull over time. So if we don't sharpen them, guess what? We are trying to cut stuff and we're not getting anywhere. So what we need to do is actually stop back and focus on ourselves a little bit and those things that are going to sharpen them up. Unfortunately, what happens, you guys, when things start to get really tough and we're not enjoying our work, we're not enjoying life? What's human nature? What do we want to do? We want to quit. Yeah, quit. What else? Oh, I like that. Someone said work harder. Oh, I like that. That did not come to my mind when I struggle. I definitely follow this human instinct, which is I start looking at my PTO time, I'm like, how do I get away from this situation? How do I run away? Human nature is to run away, very first thing. We fight usually second. So I like that someone said they fight first. That's cool. And so we see this in our staff, we see this in ourselves. What happens when we take a vacation now and we run away and we don't do anything to really sharpen our saw? What do we come back to? Has anyone taken a vacation and come back? What do you come back to? A billion more emails, more than you can even do. You were even more buried. And now you didn't sharpen your saw, so you're at a huge disadvantage. So what we need to do is actually sharpen that. These are some of the things that are recommended when you go to look and focus on yourself. Number one thing is they say exercise. It's super important. And that can be a walk, right? Just something to help you. Improve your diet, learn a new skill, join a club. All these different things are ideas that help us to sharpen our saw. So when you guys, I just want to get some feedback from the audience here because we all have our own things. What are things that you guys do to sharpen your saw when you just need to get it back, right? What are some things that you do when you take that personal time? And by the way, I've had people say drinking, shopping, all those, if that works, that's awesome, right? What? Yoga. I cannot do yoga, especially the hot stuff. But yeah, that's a good one. Awesome.
Take dogs for a walk.
Yeah, just take them. Right? Something joyful about a dog, right? They're just happy all the time. So I like that. Crafts. What'd you say? So someone said, oh, that's awesome. So for those of you online, someone said a hot tub lunch break. That's not bad, right? That's awesome, Athena. Work in the garden, back online.
All right, someone online, Patty online said, get out in nature. People are echoing exercise. Find a new work project that's inspiring, or line dancing.
Ooh, line dancing. That's a good one. I love it. Yeah, all of those things, that's what we have to do. I was speaking to Tammy Kuhn, who's sitting in the audience here, and she was talking about the fact that she's finally found some work-life balance. Before she was like always killing it. Not that she doesn't kill it today. She does a great job at what she's doing. But she's said she's found that joy of just having a little bit of time. And we all need that. That's how we recapture our magic. That's the very first principle actually. And that is sharpening the saw. So please make sure that you're sharpening your saw. What happens, you guys, when we forget to sharpen our saw? Anybody? If you're too young to understand this video, we're going to play it anyway, and we'll describe it to you after. But this is what happens when we forget to sharpen our saw. Does people get it? Because like the old typewriters, you had to go up and do that, right? IT hates us when we don't sharpen our saw because we're ruining things. So please make sure you always sharpen your saw. The second principle that helps us recapture our magic is to look in the mirror. And I know that sounds silly, but really we have a tendency when things are bad to look where? Usually not at ourselves, right? We want to blame anybody else around us for why we're feeling the way that we're feeling. So we tend to look at our leaders, we look at the organization, we look at anybody else on why I'm feeling so bad. So really the magic of recapturing your own magic is to look at ourselves, look in that mirror. So the 80s, not that bad, right? We looked in mirrors all the time. We're feathering our hairs constantly, right? So not bad. This principle is about being willing to be honest and real with ourselves. We've talked about stories before. We've had Cy Wakeman come out and talk about stories. But for those of you who've not heard about Cy Wakeman and her stories and the dangers that they have, all of us are really good storytellers, aren't we? From the beginning of time, human nature is to tell stories. That's why we can walk into a cave and see cave drawings all over it, because what were they doing? Telling a story. We like to tell stories. And as humans, do our stories stay small or do they get bigger over time? They tend to get really big over time. And unfortunately, in the workplace, stories happen all the time, right? So here we have someone who maybe walks in and they sit down next to us and they go, and we're like, oh my gosh, what did I do, right? Well, here, sniffing, you're doing all these different things. And we already start our story, and our story is that there's something wrong, right? And those stories tend to not stay small. So maybe Kelly, I'm excited to speak with Kelly one day. She comes walking in, but for whatever reason, as I say, hi, Kelly, she gets an eyelash in her eye. So she does this to me, right? And she doesn't respond because she's really thinking about her presentation that she has to do. And she just walks off into her office. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I do? Right? She hates me and I don't even know what I do. So I go over to my friend Michelle and like, guess what happened? Kelly walked in. I just said hi to her and she did this to me. Right? She hates me and I don't even know. She's really challenging. I don't know if she should be at this organization. Right? And before we know it, there's this whole episode just because Kelly had an eyelash in her eye. And those things go on all the time. So the recommendation, how do we get past the stories? The recommendation is once we get into these stories, these are the steps to leaving behind, very valuable. We must write down our stories, but not electronically where they can be sent, right? Write it down on a piece of paper, then scribble out everything that you can't support 100% by fact. And usually what we're left with is when we go back and read it is the honest truth. And we're able to get away from that story and look and live in reality. So just want to share that with you. As you go to look at yourself in the mirror, make sure you're looking at yourself in a real way and not some story that you've created, but in a real way. So make sure you write everything down and move forward. This is the danger of not living in reality, by the way. Running past this clip I wanted to share.
Bite him. You can't help but help yourself.
All right. So, we have to live in reality and not these stories. So make sure that we're doing that. The third principle of recapturing our magic, remember, it starts when the job responsibilities start to drain our magic. It's so important to stay focused. Did you ever say that to your children? Stay focused. Did your parents ever say it to you? Yeah. No, never. It's just like, no, I was always focused. I was good. But my parents did, and there's value in our ability to stay focused. I don't know if you've ever seen this model. This is our circle of influence. There's a circle of concern, circle of influence, and then we have our center of focus. So I just want to talk a little bit about the circle of concern. What is a circle of concern? It's when we in our lives are actually concerned about something that we have no control over. So maybe we open up whichever app on our phone gives us our news in the day, and we saw that there was an earthquake in Japan. And we're like, oh my goodness, there was an earthquake in Japan. All day you're sitting there and you're so worried about it that you're every once in a while Googling and doing all this stuff. Can you change the fact that there was an earthquake in Japan? So what have you just done with that time that's yours? It's kind of gone away and you have no control over it. So people end up being very frustrated when they live their life in this circle of concern area. Circle of influence is when we have a little bit of influence over those things that are going on around us, and it's a much better place for us to live our life. Our magic tends to shine, but where it's golden, you guys, is right there in that center of focus. And center of focus only happens when what we are doing perfectly aligns with our mission, vision, and values. So our personal mission, vision, and values. When everything around that aligns, that's when it's beautiful. And you know what it's like when you walk in, maybe you're working with your staff, right? And you walk in and there's just a buzz and a good energy going on. It's because they're in their center of focus. You feel it. It's so powerful. And then, of course, you know what it's like when they're not. Oh, when is it going to be over the day? How do I get out of here? You start seeing all that going on. So there's power in our ability to stay focused. And this is how you stay focused. First, if you're struggling with it, I don't know if it's ADHD, whatever you're struggling with to stay focused, make sure that you eliminate distractions in your life. Focus on anything. It's like muscle memory. The more and more we do it, the more we will be able to stay focused. Do it first thing in the morning too. Whatever your mission, your goal is, make sure you're staying focused on that. If you have a plan on how you can get there, write it down and put it where it's visible. That will help you stay focused as well. And of course, take regular breaks. to allow you to recenter and refocus on those things that are important. So those are the steps they recommend to really make sure that we're maintaining that focus. But a quick question, can we be too focused? So word of warning as we go to stay focused. Yes, it's magical, but can you be too focused? Yeah, you can be so focused that you miss things in life as well. So please make sure that you're not over focusing, and I don't have time for that, but this is the danger of not staying focused, by the way.
Why can't you do this to Caroline? I've always held something against her.
Okay. Catherine and I are working on a trust exercise, and she's going to fall, and I'm going to catch her. So, step forward just a hair. Put your arms out.
Why can't you do this to Caroline?
Trust me, Catherine. Go ahead and fall. No, you put your leg back. Don't put your leg back. Stand up straight. Put your arms out for me. Now, I'm going to catch you. Okay, I promise. Go ahead and fall. Now see, I'm catching you, but you're putting your foot back. Don't put your foot back.
Maybe you're catching me.
Just a minute, sweetheart. I'll be right with you, okay? Stand right there. Put your arms out.
Daddy!
Catherine!
Oh!
Oh, no!
Ow!
Oh,
Are you
are
okay?
you okay?
Ow!
Does your head hurt?
Yeah!
Sweetheart, are you okay?
Oh!
Oh.
Okay, so is there danger when we're not focused? Yes, there is a danger, and obviously people can get hurt. So I'm going to skip over the next one here. Sorry. Oops. Okay. Things are moving funny on my screen up here. So the fourth principle that I want to jump into just due to time is when people around us start to drain our magic, it is about proper communication. You guys are so fortunate that later today, we're going to have a fun session on appropriate business communication. And we're going to lead into it a little bit with this next little section here, because it also helps us recapture our magic. So we're going to start with an activity. Are you guys ready to move just a little bit for me? We're going to move the camera on you as well for the people who are online so they can see what you're doing. But what I'd like you to do right now is to stand up if you'd be willing to participate. If you just want to watch, I'm totally comfortable with you just sitting and watching. That's fine. But if you'd like to participate, I'd love it if you did. Go ahead and stand up, and I'd like you to form groups of 10. Can you form groups of 10 for me? And if it's just slightly shy of 10, that's fine. Try to count off and see if you have 10. So that this needs 2, this group needs 3. 1. How many people are in this group right here? No, it's okay. That's fine. How many do we have here? We have 4. We have 5. Are you willing to help us? 5. Okay. Sunshine, can you come help us? Okay, Sunshine's going to participate as well. So I want you guys just to go ahead. We can do 2. Well, how many do we have here now? 2, 4, 5. You have how many? You have 7. Okay. Okay. Right. So, can we have well, then that'll put you at 10 and then they'll be without, but that's cool. Yeah, can we have just one more person join there? That's great. So how many do we have here? 10, 9, 8 now, 10. Perfect. So this is what's going to happen. You guys, I'm so excited to do this. I need you guys to form a straight line. Okay. It can be sideways, but eventually you're going to be looking at the person's back of their head. So again, we're going to just take a look at communication right now, you guys. This is what's going to happen. All right, so I'm going to stay up here just for a moment and give direction. Every group is going to be getting a beautiful egg. All right. You're going to be standing like these are, facing each other's back. I'm going to give this to the very first person. And when I say go, you guys are going to be competing as teams against each other. Now keep in mind, because these two have 10 and you guys only have how many? 8. That means the 2 people up front will have to go to the end to complete 10, right? And you need the one person to go to the end complete 9. The first team to get the egg all the way to the last person is going to be the winning team. And there is a little gift, by the way. So this is very exciting. But this is the way it goes. When I say go, you're going to, whoever has the egg, you have to stand back to back. So like that example right there, back to back. Ivana, Sunshine. Ivana is going to toss the egg over her head. She cannot drop it. She has to toss it. And Sunshine has to catch it. If Sunshine drops it, it goes back to the very beginning. All right? So anybody drops it along the way, where's that going to go? Back to the very front. And we're going to be monitoring, and we're going to see who our winners are. Yeah. Well. Okay, wait. All right, on your mark, everyone get ready. Wait, just due to time, because Susan reminded me, this may take too long. If you drop it, you have to go back to the last person who caught it. Okay? That way it doesn't have to go all the way back to the beginning. All right, just due to time. I'm going to stop my share here so that his video becomes the primary. You already did? We're good? Okay. So with that, on your mark, get set, go. All right, you guys, we're gonna just due to time, we're gonna go ahead and pause for a moment. We do have a winning team over here. Congratulations. Carl, do you want to come up and grab something for your team? For everybody on the winning team, they're gonna get a $5 gift card to Starbucks. So good to them. Thank you. All right, we're gonna hand those out. So good job. But I just want to take a moment to really talk, because we're heading into communication here, right? We're talking about communication. And what was the very first thing that happened? As soon as I said on your mark, get set, go, what happened? I heard the following, pow, right? I hit in the head. So people did not start with communication for the most part, right? But after it hit him in the head, what happened? The strategy and the communication started to flow. And then I started to see the energy go. And so the whole point of this activity was that sometimes we don't lead with the best communication, but we do settle into it once we definitely need it. So good job, you guys. This was so funny. I wish we had more time to let everyone complete it, but maybe on the break, you guys as a team can do that. We'll have you sit back down. Good job. I applaud you all because it was so good. Oh, okay. I was told this team over here definitely started with communication, so they were all about it. Very. So hopefully all of you had an opportunity to complete your personality profile. If not, it is online. It was mailed to you, and we will be taking a look at that in just a moment. But I wanted to first talk about some factors that stop us from effectively communicating, because they're out there and we all experience them all the time. Did you know that 30% of communication basically fails? They had this really cool study that happened up at the University of Washington. Don't boo them just because it's the University of Washington. I know we're down here in Beaver and Duck Country, but it was University of Washington, and they brought in experts on communication from all over the world as they were meeting. They tried every different form of communication and really concluded at the end that about 30% of communication fails. Now, is that okay for you as leaders who have teams that communicate every single day? Are you comfortable with that statistic? That 30% of it's going to fail? Not very exciting, is it? But there are ways to overcome that, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Also, did you know, as we break it down, that communication is really this? About 10% is what we say. What's really being heard is what? The tone in our voice and our nonverbal. How many of your people now actually even get to see each other when they're talking anymore, right? So what do we do in communication in healthcare today? We're taking 60% of our success rate out. That's why what becomes most important is this, your lovely voice and your ability to use it appropriately. So because body language is so important, just quickly, I wanted to cover a couple of things. A lot of us think that our brain controls everything that we're doing, but did you know that our brain is actually influenced by the way that we move our body? Did you guys know that? It's true. So 10 body positions that suggest that we can improve it. If we improve it, will help our performance. So they say to be more determined, do the following. Cross your arms. Did you know that? So if you see someone like that gentleman there crossing his arm, he's trying to make it through this presentation. He's determined that he can do it. I'm joking. But that is what they do. They say cross your arms. That helps you become more determined. To gain willpower, they say tense your muscles. So, you know, do some body posing to gain your willpower to get through what you need to do. I've done that before. I know when I was younger and I had to get a shot. I hated shots. I hate them now, but I hated them a lot back then. And I would tense up and they'd be like, stop tensing. And I'd be like, I'm trying to make it through, right? That's what we do. So tense a little bit and that will help you gain willpower. They also said that to lie down to be more creative. And I'm giving you permission at work to lie down. How crazy is that, right? But it's true. Have you ever had that moment when you wake up in the morning, you just barely climbed in the shower and you got all these ideas flowing? Right? The reason that is because of a chemical. So we have this thing called noradrenaline that is released when we're standing, and it makes us not as creative. Interesting. When we're upright. So lie down to be more creative. There you go. They say gain confidence by standing like Superman. So if you need some confidence in your day, stand up and do your what? Super person pose there. It's not bad. It actually helps. You can go do power posing in front of a mirror. Not bad. If someone walks in on you, just say, yeah, I'm gaining my what? Confidence at the end of the day. And they say smile to reduce stress. This is big. The brain doesn't know the difference, right? You have a smile on your face. It sees a smile. And it's not thinking, I'm upset. It's now thinking, I'm happy. Put mirrors at your employees' desks. Give them an opportunity to be staring back at themselves or flash a smiling face every once in a while at them, because what it does is it really triggers the brain to be in a happier state. I love this, and I wish we did this everywhere, but bow slightly to put yourself at ease and put others at ease as well. How great would it be if you walked into admitting, right, at a healthcare system and the people are like bowing to you? Oh my gosh, I'd be so thrilled. I'd be like, oh, this is the place I want to be. When others interact with us and we're willing to just do that little bit of nod and that bow, it sends a really positive message that we're willing to work with them, and it puts others at ease. Mimic others to understand their emotions. Don't do it in front of them. right? But mimic others to understand their emotions. So if someone comes into your office and throws up on you, oh my goodness, and Steve is just a jerk, and blah, 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 and you're like, where are they coming from? So you go into the other room, you're like, oh, Steve is such a jerk. And you're like, I got it, right? It helps us understand things better. So try to mimic in order to do that. That's why they're teaching sign language, by the way, in schools, not because they want everyone to sign. It just helps us better. They say take an angle to reduce conflict. So if someone's coming at you, if you don't do the Superman pose, right? But if they're coming at you and they're saying, don't do this, take an angle. It's letting them know that you don't want conflict. Talk with your hands to improve that clarity. That goes back to the signing and everything. If you're not great at talking with your hands, don't just flap them, right? But if you're good at using them appropriately, it really does help create clarity at the end of the day. And then use them to have retention as well. So if you are using your hands, it does help you understand and remember things a lot better. And finally, they say chew gum, believe it or not, to feel more alert. So if you're okay with chewing gum, that's something that is good and it puts you in a better mood. Really, at the end of the day, what I'm saying when it comes to body language is if you're struggling, try lying down, crossing your arms, and popping in a stick of gum, and you'll be okay. To make sure that you are good, for those of you who are present here today for making the trip, I do have, and I need a little bit of help, we have a pack of gum for you. So you have some different, oh, perfect, 3 of you, each one, you can hand them out. Very good. Always a perk for coming to an Oregon HFMA event, right? You walk away with something, always. So just quickly, I want to cover a couple of other facts about communication. Did you guys know that when we are ticked off, we are 100% successful at our communication? Yeah, so maybe our new policy is, right? We grab our teams together, we start a swear fest, we really tick everybody off, and then we hit the floor with the patients. No, doesn't work, right? But it's the one time that our nonverbal, our verbal, and everything tends to match. Also, did you know that hint droppers are the worst communicators? So what is a hint dropper, you guys? A hint dropper is someone who doesn't use words. They just use body language to try to communicate what's going on. And they're the worst because you're trying to figure out what's going on. You know them quite well because they'll walk into work and they'll be like, right? Everyone knows something's wrong, but you're not going to talk to them because you're scared because they're doing their hint dropping. This will bring a team down the fastest. So if you happen to use hint dropping, please stop. Please use appropriate words and kind words as you go to communicate. Also, this is a real factor, you guys. Men and women do communicate differently. It's due to a genetic makeup. It's nothing, it can be learned, it can overcome, obviously, but there's a thing called the corpus callosum. They've torn many brains apart. In men, ladies, the corpus callosum almost doesn't exist. It's just a little bit of connective tissue between the right and left lobe. So if you're dealing with a guy, what's something you probably shouldn't do? Again, not a lot of connective tissue between the two, right? So maybe stick to one topic at a time, not two, right? And women, they've torn the brains apart and you have a raging freeway of connective tissue between your right and left lobes. That's just the way that you're designed. They've been able to prove that women can walk into a room, be thinking about career, other things, walk out and remember the conversations that were going on in a room because you pick up everything. You're just wired to pick up everything. We're very, very different in that standpoint. You can skip this clip, sorry. Also, our environment makes us communicate very differently. When we were growing up, we saw people that we liked, right? And we saw people that we hated. And when we saw the people that we hated, what did we say to ourselves? I will never, be like that person, right? I'll never be like them. And so we actually start to create the way that we communicate and our own personal style based off of people that we interacted with and things that we liked and things that we didn't like. So our environment's a big factor to the way that we communicate. And then last but not least, generationally, we communicate differently, and that's not right or wrong. It just is. Each generation has their own way of communicating. Oh my goodness, I was watching a TikTok on this couple that was trying to explain what all of these new acronyms and meanings meant with the newest generation. It was just fascinating to watch. But this really is another driver of our communication. And just on this point, I had a generational moment not too long ago. I was up in Stevenson, Washington. Has anyone ever been there? It's really small. There's not much. If you drive and you blink, you are going to go through Stevenson, Washington. But we were there staying at Skamania nearby, and we decided to go into town and just do some shopping. We're inside this really cool shop, but it's old buildings that are there. So as we walk in, I'm honestly leaning like this, trying to stay level inside this shop. And I've got this young generation, what's the newest one? Z? Is there a newer one than that? She was behind the cash register. And so I was just curious. I'm like, oh my goodness, this building's so old that I'm falling over. So I asked her, I was like, do you know how old this building is? And she's like, oh my goodness, it's like really old. And I said, really? Well, how old is it? And she's like, well, it's like early 2000s. No, obviously it was not early 2000s, but in her mind, that was old, right? So we definitely have a disconnect generationally as we go to interact. And then the strongest piece of communication really comes to this right here. Our personality types tend to dictate the method of communication that we like. So if you have yours in front of you, the test that you just did, I want you to just go ahead and look at the results. They should, if you have your addition correct, and if you didn't cheat and you were honest with yourself, this should be the core of who you really are. And so we're going to jump into these right now. There's two easier to identify personalities. The very first one is if you had the G and D, you're what we call a director personality. Does anyone in the room have a G and a D? Like when you circled, those were the two that came up. Okay, good. So we have some director personalities here. So a little bit about the director's personalities. And by the way, I'm going to go over strengths and weaknesses of each. This does not mean that this is still your weakness because we have a tendency to correct those over time, but we will be talking about those just a little bit. Your strengths are administration and taking the initiative. These people are very goal driven and they know exactly what they want and they don't like anything to get in the way of that goal and where they're going. So their weakness is they're a little bit impatient and insensitive because they're so driven towards that goal. Their irritations are indecision because it messes with the goal. Don't be indecisive, just move forward. Their goals are productivity and what's that big word right there? Control. These people love to be in control of the conversation because they are goal driven and they fear being hustled. Their motivation is of course winning. At the end of the day, you know you're dealing with one of these individuals when you see these types of phrases. Tell them I want to talk to me ASAP. Let's get this settled right now. What's the bottom line, right? Cut to the chase. They're telling you how you're going to proceed on things because they've already figured it out. They have the goal. This is where they're going to go. So how do you deal with this personality, you guys? If you have something that you want to introduce. Just do what they tell you. Just do what they tell you. It's just telling you right there. Right. That's very good that you said that because actually at the end of the day, what they really want is, oops, didn't go back like I wanted. They want control. So guess what you have to do with this person? You have to give them control of the conversation. If they feel like they're in control of the conversation, guess what? You can have a conversation with them because they feel like they're in control. But if you try to take the control, saying, no, you're wrong, this is an example, oh, you're going to battle it out, right? So make sure that you're doing that. The other easy to identify personality is the O and D. Any O's and D's? I know there are in this room because I know you very well. I love it. If you ended up with the O and D, you're what we call a socializer. And a socializer personality is very interesting because these are people that are very good at persuading, interacting with other people. They just love it. Their weakness is what? They can be a little disorganized, a little carelessness going on. Their irritation is really routine. If you ask a true socializer to do the same thing over and over, they want to blow their brains out, right? This is awful. Just don't make me do it. Their goals are popularity and applause, and they fear loss of prestige, and motivation is, of course, recognition. So you're going to hear phrases like this dealing with this type of personality. What do you see? Here's an idea. What do you think? What are all these kind of phrases doing? They're encouraging what, you guys? Talk, right? We're socializers. That's what I want to do. I happen to be this personality. How do you deal with this? And how do you teach your teams to deal with this when they're on the phone and they've got that person that's telling them about their belly button that they rolled into a sweater or something weird? And you're like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to get off. And I've got call times that I've got to keep and all this stuff going on. So what do you do? Well, again, going back to this, look, what is their motivation? Recognition. So you get Jeff Johnson on the line with you. This is what you do right away. And you're like, oh no, Jeff's on the phone. You go, Jeff, I am so glad you called today. What did you just do? Applause. You just applauded me. Yay, I'm so glad you called today. And then you go, but I only have like a minute and I really want to help you. Guess what Jeff's thinking? They love me. They would take more time with me if they could, but I understand they only have a minute. Okay, that's how you deal with that socializer. Okay, very good. Sorry, I'm going to skip over that. There's harder to identify personalities, and I want to go over those quickly. If you're an O and an I, you're what we call a relator. How many O's and I's do we have in the room? Okay. By the way, take a look at these people because these are people that you want on your team. Because what are their strengths? Servicing and listening. These people love to be involved. Their weakness is what? They can be a little oversensitive and indecisive, only because these people are very heart-driven. So you know them because they will actually call you on the phone and say, do you realize by doing this what you guys are doing to the community? Right? You hear that phrase? And you're like, I got a relator on, right? They are relating to everything going on around them, very heart-driven. And their irritation is what? Yeah, the directors. Congratulations. Those are their big irritation or directors that are insensitive and just moving forward. They want to know what the impact is going to be. Their goals are acceptance, stability. They fear sudden change, not because they don't like change. It's just they want to understand what the impact is going to be on the world around them before they move forward. And their motivation is being involved. How do you know you're dealing with this personality? You're going to hear phrases like this. I'd like to go kind of slow on this. Is that okay? Have we determined the impact on the staff by making this decision? I'm not sure about this yet. When you start to hear that, they want to go back and kind of reevaluate emotionally where things are at. I'd like to help however I can. And how do you really feel about this? When you hear the feely, touchy stuff, you're dealing with a relator. And the one thing that will irritate them again, right? The one thing is being insensitive. So if someone says, can you believe by raising your rates and doing what you're doing, you're causing us not to be able to get the healthcare that we need. And you're like, well, rates gone up everywhere. Go to any hospitals, suck it up. That's just the way it is, which I know directors would love to say if they wanted to, if they could. But really, we need to be sensitive. And if we remain sensitive, we're going to keep that conversation going and be able to share our magic with those individuals. And last, G and I. How many G's and I's do we have? Oh, wow. It's rare. So G's and I's, these are the thinkers. And by the way, the thinkers have a plan. And by the way, you guys, the plan is perfect. They have thought it out. So they're not just goal-driven. They have gone through every single detail to get there. So their strengths are planning, analyzing. Their weakness is they're a little bit perfectionistic because they've planned it all out. They hate unpredictability because it messes with the plan. We don't want to do that. Their goals are accuracy, thoroughness. They fear criticism because they thought it out. It's perfect, and they want to make that progress. How do you know you're dealing with them? You'll hear phrases like this. Let's look at it logically. Give me all the facts first. You know them well. They'll call you and say, I don't owe this bill because I already talked to my doctor. He said it would be free. I talked to my insurance company. They said it would be free. I pay all this money, so everything's free, right? So the worst thing that you can do is they hate unpredictability, right? Or the criticism of their plan. So if you go, well, that's not even right. You're immediately going to turn them off. It's going to get escalated to a supervisor. So what do you have to do? You have to acknowledge the plan. Oh, I see how you came up with that. Oh, they understand my thought process. I'm all good. And then you can introduce new things. But if you don't acknowledge the plan, you're not going to go very far in that conversation. So how many of you were looking at these different personalities and you thought, yeah, that's kind of me, but maybe not quite me? Anybody? All right. That's because of this right here. I've got some mixed breeds out there. And I do have the slides that are out on the website. So these are the different types. Your core would be the one at the very end. So if you ended up with being a director, you might not be a true director. You might be a socializing or relating or thinking director. And there's some definitions behind those. But just wanted to go over that because communication is so important that we actually are going to have a huge session on it this afternoon. We're going to dive deeper and give you awesome insight and information on how to deal with those, right? It's all true. The last principle here is important is when we start to drain our magic, we need to stop and listen. So with that, This is about truly validating people. And when you think of the word validation, I know a lot of you go to parking, but we're not talking about validation in parking. We're actually validating other people. And people will tell me, I do it, but really these are the steps to validate somebody. I'm going to jump right there. To truly validate someone in a conversation or in life, we have to do the what? Or these 4 things. We have to do what? Listen by giving what? Yeah. How hard is that for us today? Because what's vibrating in our pocket? We have a million things going on. We're distracted, Kelly, like you were saying, we get distracted so easily that sometimes we're not really giving our full attention to things. But when we do, it's amazing what happens. Listen to the emotions being expressed, listen to the needs being expressed, and understand by doing what? Putting yourself in their shoes. And I know everyone goes, I don't have time to do this. I'm busy. I can't stop. These things don't take that long to do. When we do them, it's amazing the validation that goes back to the individuals that we're trying to interact with, and the magic that can be produced between those 2 individuals and what we're trying to accomplish. This is the last principle, and then we're going to go into our secret here. But remember, we can't do it alone either. So this is the other thing about recapturing our magic. We can't sit there and do all these things and just think we're going to be okay. The last little piece is our magic only becomes really powerful when we decide to do what? Reach out and start sharing it with other people. That's when it starts to influence the world around us, and that's when magic truly begins. So in order for us to do that, there's a little thing right there. When you see the circle in the middle, it says personal. And what 2 items are there? In order for us to truly share with other people, we have to have what? Trustworthiness and competency in what we're doing. People don't really want to hear from us if we're not competent in what we're doing. And if we're trustworthy, then people will want to hear more. And that's when the real sharing begins. So there's a difference between competency and trustworthiness, but here's trustworthiness in action. Just a quick little clip. Oh, actually, I have to skip over. I just looked at my time, so I'm almost out of time. But I did want to get to this one because I talk about this a lot in almost every presentation that I give, but this is so powerful. We have the ability to control outcomes in our lives, and I know we don't feel that way. There's days that I don't feel that way. I feel like I'm a victim to everything going on. But when we have our magic going, we are recapturing that constantly and sharing it abundantly, then we have the ability to truly influence. And it is a real secret. It is called the law of expectation, and we talk about this a lot. When these things are going on, the law of expectation is real. It's as real as gravity, you guys. It exists everywhere. When we are treating others with respect, when we are sharing our magic with them, when that energy is there, then we can ask people to do things and they will actually try to achieve it or exceed it, because human nature is actually this. We want to exceed expectations that are set for us if we are in a good place with that other individual. And so I ran into this clip, and this is actually compliments of Kelly Smith showing this in action. What does it look like, this law of expectation, and how can we influence another person to produce an outcome because we recommend it, right? Doesn't seem like it should be possible because it never happens. We do it all the time, but it is possible when we have magic with that other individual. And here it is in action. So thank you, Kelly. No, it's a good one. It's a really good one.
I have a lot of memories from when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me, though, was when I was about 10 years old, and I was in school, and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled holding still. And I would try to listen and focus and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there and then I would just start tapping. And the students in the class would look at me and they'd say, "Hey, stop tapping." A lot of the time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually even the teachers got after me and they would yell at me and they'd say, "Clint, you have to stop tapping." It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, "Okay, maybe when you go back to class, just try sitting on your hands." And so I did. I went back to class, and when I felt myself starting to tap, I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class, and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, he looked at me and he yelled. And he said, "Clint, stay after class." And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person that believes that a single moment in time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me, and I will never forget it. And so I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and an empty classroom. And he walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, "Clint, come here, I want to talk to you." And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, "Now, I need you to know something, you're not in trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you." And he asked, he said, "Have you ever thought about playing the drums?" And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. And he reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Clint, you're not a problem. I think you're a drummer." That moment on, I've never put those sticks down. I've toured, recorded, and played drums all over the world. My whole college education was paid for with drumsticks in my hand. Just because of a single moment in time when somebody believed in me and he saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself. And from that moment, I learned that there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
If you're crying, it's Kelly's fault. Thank you for sharing that video with me, Kelly, and allowing me to share it here. But what a powerful moment. This is what we mean by sharing our magic, right? And when we do, it changes the world. So you guys, just to recap everything, remember to live life looking forward. Remember who that real leader is. It's the person who steps up first. And one person does make a difference in this world. To recapture your magic, make sure that you are constantly sharpening your saw, looking in the mirror, looking to see what you can do to better yourself. Stay focused, obviously. Use proper communication. Learn to validate others. And don't keep it to yourself, but share it. And as you do, you will find happiness in your life and impact the world around you the way it should. So thank you guys for letting me be with you and share these thoughts with you. Hopefully you can grab something from it and it will help you along your way. And as I love to say, may the force be with you all. We're so appreciative for all that you do every single day to keep us healthy in our communities, to be champions for us. So thank you.